So today we have huge news in the Johnny Depp trial, and this is something that you and I have talked about a few times now. The metadata on certain pictures, it looks like it's having problems, and even the judge is starting to question whether or not there's a problem with some of this quote-unquote evidence. Fun times today. Fun times indeed. Now, before we get started, very briefly, this is our second comic. Link is in the description. Thank you everybody that supported the campaign. We are in demand now, meaning you can pick it up before it ends. We are 40 sales away from 2,000. That is a huge industry standard, and we had the mainstream try to lock us out of everything. But that's okay. They don't matter. You do, so thank you for checking that out. Now, the subject that we're covering today, I think it's an absolutely devastating one because you're talking about the credibility of pictures that are being presented. Now, the picture that's being brought up today is this one, although this isn't the only picture that's being questioned. In fact, it looks like 20 images plus a video as well are being questioned. And when you get down to it, if a judge is asking about the pedigree of your information, yeah, you have a problem. You have a big problem. So this first clip that we're talking about here, it comes from Sky.com. And Sky.com, let's just say they've been very, very friendly toward AH in a lot of their coverage. So they say, Mr. W, who is acting for the Sun, is saying that NGN received a letter at 10 a.m. this morning claiming some images have been quote-unquote adapted or manipulated. The authenticity of a photo showing apparent injury to AH's face on the 21st of May 2016 is being questioned, and it's being asked whether it has been quote-unquote photoshopped. There are also 20 other pictures taken at the same time being questioned by Depp's legal representatives. Mr. W says, quote-unquote, an expert has looked at the picture, both the internal metadata and the system metadata, and says that the expert saw no evidence of alteration. Mr. W is saying this issue is time critical and urging the court to allow this to be investigated urgently. Now, with regard to Nick Wallace talking about it, I think that this becomes even more interesting because you're not getting a synopsis of what's going on. You're actually seeing some of the exchange. In here, you'll see DS for Johnny Depp, you'll see Mr. W for AH, and you'll see the judge actually talk about what's going on. So DS is telling judge about an application to adduce expert evidence. It contains a letter from the proposed expert. It's not an issue which, in my submission, we should be required to deal with now. The judge, this application was issued this morning. If you're not in a position to deal with it, I understand that. And DS says thank you. Now, Mr. W, again, that's the person representing AH, is on their feet, saying that the application is time sensitive. The expert needs 2 days to prepare his report. And you notice the statement there, the judge is not having any of it. He's not going to allow that to transpire in any way. Mr. W says further on that it relates to the metadata disclosed by the claimant in January of 2020. It is only this morning that they are challenging the authenticity of the images that they disclosed to us. We raised the issue of metadata a week ago, and there were 2 prompts for this because in DS re-examining Johnny Depp, he had doubts about the reliability of metadata in general in specific reference to the Boston plane recording. Now, the audio recording that they're referencing, I'm going to play it to you. This is 18 seconds of footage here, and you can understand why the legitimacy of this might actually fall into question.
Keep an eye on it.
Now, in listening to that, you could see why there might be some questions about the legitimacy of that recording. I mean, if you listen to it, what are we hearing exactly? Are we hearing a lawnmower? Are we hearing a plane? And who is that person in the background? Supposedly, that's Johnny Depp, but again, metadata established with that, it does not match up to when they're telling you everything took place. So this continues here. It was Erstats, I'm not sure about that, metadata, which his team had decided to cut and paste into paper in order to demonstrate how easy it was. DS mutters something in this. The metadata in this case is crucial. Judge, well, what had been disclosed in January were pictures taken by AH. Mr. W says yes. The other was a schedule that had been prepared. There was a letter dated the 29th of January, and there was a schedule, and the letter refers to the digital images, and then a spreadsheet containing the metadata. But the spreadsheet is wrong. It contains fields for time and date. The dates are all right, but the times are wrong. The spreadsheet found its way into the trial bundle as if that table accurately represented the metadata relating to the May 2016 images. In fact, the times are wrong, and there is no dispute that they are wrong. So again, all of the times are wrong in there, and the judge further relates that by saying all of the times that are listed in that spreadsheet, they are 00.00. So Mr. W says correct on that. The judge, it doesn't take a genius to see if there's something funny. You can see that there. The judge is actually questioning the legitimacy of whether this stuff provided actually works out or not. Mr. W says with this, indeed, and AH provided the correct metadata. The judge said there isn't a witness statement from AH exhibiting these documents. Mr. W says, no, they've been disclosed to us by the other side. So the judge says, so you've got the documents relating to Mr. Question Mark's witness statement with the metadata in it. Mr. W says, yeah, we have some of it, but we don't have all of it, but not all of it. So the judge says, what you want is time of the pics. Mr. W says, yes, it's very important to our case. Mr. W says, so those photos were disclosed, and there is a letter from our side saying, please confirm you accept the metadata. This is getting toey and froey. I'll tweet the result. Mr. W saying that NGN have had a letter at 10 a.m. this morning claiming some of the images have been manipulated and that this has not been pleaded anywhere before and that this is central to the case. Takes judge to the photo of AH, which was taken on the 21st of May, which shows bruises. He says that this image and 20 others were taken on May 21st at 2023 when Johnny Depp was still in the building but before the police had arrived. And now Schillings are saying that whilst they accept the time and date, they say the images have been saturated or otherwise photoshopped. So Mr. W continues with this, saying that their expert has examined the quote-unquote internal metadata, not just the quote-unquote system metadata, and he is able to examine from the metadata whether they have been manipulated in any way, and he has concluded that they have not been manipulated in any manner, and he has conducted a number of different types of analysis. He was asked to do this yesterday. Your Lordship will appreciate that we have been waiting since the weekend to find out if the claimant is going to challenge the metadata, and we cannot be blamed for the lateness of this exercise. DS says on this, Mr. W has now just made the application when all he was asked was whether now was the right time to make the application. So the judge says DS has a point. It's whether this is the right time to make the application. Mr. W says on this, we think we can make the application now. DS has been stalling. DS is not happy about that statement. That's ridiculous. They note with that. The judge says, wait a minute, DS, you'll get a chance to speak. Mr. W said this is a very simple application. We really cannot wait. There is time to call expert evidence next week. Judge, now wait a minute, please. Mr. Shearborn, sit down. I don't need to hear from you because I am sympathetic that you ought to have an opportunity opportunity to respond. It clearly is something that needs to be dealt with pretty quickly, so I propose to do so on Monday. Now, DS responds to this, yes, but there are a few things your lordship needs to understand. First of all, it's simply not true to say, the judge says, Mr. Shearborn, I am not acceding to your objecting, intending to reflect at all on what Mr. M said in developing the background to the application. Now, can it be done on Monday? DS says, well, yes, but this expert report seems to involve the provisions of images to the expert on the 13th of July, to which they're referred in this letter. So we will need to consider how to provide our own expert. They need their own expert in this, is what they're saying, because, hey, something is going wrong here. The judge says, while I'm sympathetic to you not dealing with it this afternoon, we really do need to get on with this. We are in the middle of a trial, so the application will be decided at 9:30 a.m. on Monday. Now that's interesting, and it could blow this case apart. I mean, we already have so many questionable things in this, but if the pictures themselves, they're not allowed in, what do you have to say then? But anyway, let me know what you think on this. I thought that this was kind of interesting. So to close, let me mention our comic book. It's in demand right now. Link is in the description. You can still pick it up while we finalize it. We are 40 sales away from that industry standard 2,000, and it's with no help from the mainstream, no help from pros out there, and we even got locked down by MailChimp, but that's okay. I mean, we don't need them. We need you. So thank you, as always. Thank you, too, for being here. We definitely do appreciate you. You make these endeavors possible. Without you, nothing works, and more people should say that to you. Closing, want to say thank you. Have a good weekend, and yeah, until the next video.